What happens when Sophie Cunningham ditches the basketball and picks up the bodyguard badge like she's been hired by the Secret Service just for Caitlin Clark? Absolute pandemonium. We're talking full-on emotional demolition, locker room tempers flaring, and Sophie dishing out smoke like it's her job. Sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, is anybody on this team gonna stand up for a Caitlin Clark? J.C. Sheldon grabbing Caitlin Clark all game, clawing at her. It's like tonight was a brawl, folks. Tonight was a brawl. And I'm like, is anybody on this team going to stand up for it? And Sophie Cunningham. When Sophie snapped, it wasn't a flicker. It was a full superhero origin story. She didn't just show up to play. She showed up to dismantle the entire Connecticut Sun like she'd been planning it all season. This wasn't just drama. It was scorched earth policy, and you better believe the fallout came in hot. So how did Sophie break her silence after getting ejected for defending Caitlin Clark from the Connecticut Sun bullies? We'll break it down. From the moment Sophie Cunningham laced up, the whole WNBA should have been on high alert. Because she didn't clock in for a typical shift. She clocked in for warfare. She wasn't there to shoot threes and run pick and rolls. No, Sophie came with a one-item agenda. Make sure nobody touches Caitlin Clark without immediate, life-altering consequences. Think of her as a human firewall. Cross her perimeter, and you're getting torched. Let's be real. Sophie wasn't moving like a teammate. She was moving like the head of security at Area 51. You throw an elbow at Caitlin. Boom. Sophie materializes out of nowhere with the wrath of 10 angry gym teachers and a crossover that doubles as a warning. You bump Caitlin post-whistle. Congratulations. You've summoned the basketball Grim Reaper in a ponytail, and she's got receipts. Now, let's start here. This is of course Sophie and Sheldon going down the floor. Sophie tries to wrap her up, and Sheldon gets to the floor, and all hell breaks loose. And Sophie said, I'm not having it. We'll go. So there's that. That, of course, was all a byproduct of this right here, folks. And I mean, when I tell you, social media is setting the WNBA on fire right now, not in a good way. It's the understatement. Sophie doesn't do warm-up jogs. She does territorial patrols. She scans the court like a hawk with caffeine jitters, ready to intercept chaos before it lands. And when it does, oh, she's the court's judge, jury, and executioner. One wrong move around Caitlin, and Sophie's already halfway into your lane delivering justice with a side of shoulder check intimidation. Her body language doesn't say, let's play. It says, try me and meet your chiropractor. Of course, Marina Mabrey's going to get ejected because that was unwarranted. She literally came out of nowhere and chalked Caitlin Clark. There should be a flagrant one, of course, on J.C. Sheldon because she swiped her and hit her in the eyeball. Whether it is intentional or not, you can still have a flagrant foul called on you whether you are trying to intentionally hurt somebody or not. But this is what they called, you guys. This is what they called. Caitlin Clark, Marina Mabrey, Tina Charles were assessed with technical fouls on Tuesday. Caitlin, Marina, and Tina Charles. Technical fouls. That's it. Technical fouls. That's it. And J.C. Sheldon was assessed with a flagrant 1 foul, and no players were ejected. This woman isn't just a deterrent. She's an omen. Other players stretch before games. Sophie loads metaphorical ammo. While coaches talk about strategy, Sophie's plotting divine retribution for anyone thinking about getting spicy with the Fever's golden child. One glare from her, and even the most seasoned vets suddenly remember they left the oven on. There's no halfway with Sophie. She's not here for the pre-game vibes. She's here to throw down like it's the Hunger Games and Caitlin's holding the last district. This level of fearless loyalty is practically extinct in the league. While some stars are curating playlists and practicing mindfulness, Sophie is storming into the arena like a berserker with court clearance. She's bringing that 90s bruiser energy wrapped in a modern-day, don't mess with mine mentality. It's instinct, not strategy. You can't teach this kind of ferocity. It's a personality trait with sneakers. And the league. It hasn't seen this kind of, I'll burn it all down before I let you touch her energy since Rodman was body-slamming folks in the paint. Now let's get into the real issue. Caitlin Clark didn't walk into this league. She got thrown into the lion's den with a target on her back the size of Indiana. People weren't playing her. They were hunting her. Not just defenders either. Entire rosters had it out for her like she owed them money. It wasn't enough to outscore her. No, they wanted to make a statement, elbow her into the Gatorade cooler and send a message. But what they didn't account for? Sophie, watch your mouth. Cunningham sitting front row with a vendetta, for only about a minute and a half in of recording this reaction earlier, with 1 minute left and all hell broke loose. Between J.C. Sheldon and Sophie Cunningham, and it is very clear the Indiana Fever. Some of these girls on this team are finally fed up. They didn't realize one woman could shut down a whole press of pettiness. Sophie turned Clark's target zone into a demolition zone. You try to rough Caitlin up? Now you're on Sophie's hit list. This wasn't just about team chemistry. It was personal. Sophie appointed herself protector-in-chief, and let me tell you, her background checks are thorough and come with consequences. She reads vibes like some people read box scores. Once again, WNBA, we're not talking about your basketball. We're talking about the WNBA, WWE Royal Circus that you got going on right now, and we all know this incident with Sophie stems from the incident that was clearly not handled correctly by the WNBA and the referees. Caitlin had to navigate a season where every game felt like a test, and not just skill, but patience. Cheap shots, side eyes, whispered slights. And while Caitlin kept her composure like a pro, Sophie made sure that staying classy didn't mean staying vulnerable. This wasn't about playing the game. It was about preserving peace in a war zone. Alright, enough is enough. At some point the line gets crossed too often where something needs to be done and things need to be corrected. And that is certainly the case with the way things around Caitlin Clark are officiated. This is a constant problem now. It is something that, since the beginning, I've kind of backed off on, because physical play is a part of sports. Going after a superstar and trying to rough them up a little bit to get in their head is a part of sports. But when it crosses the line, the referees need to do their job. While opposing teams huddled up to scheme on Clark, Sophie was already drawing her own plays, mostly involving intimidation, timing, and perfectly legal aggression. The second someone looked at Caitlin the wrong way, Sophie was there, fully loaded and ready to bring holy judgment in the form of legal screens and passive-aggressive body language. She's not protecting Caitlin for clout. She's protecting her because this is a teammate who gets it. She sees the bigger picture. And here's the twist. Sophie doesn't just defend. She delivers. She's a legit hooper who just happens to also double as the league's most dangerous deterrent. She's not here for flowers, tweets, or trophies. She's here for Caitlin's safety, her team's sanity, and the utter annihilation of every bad faith bump that magically isn't a foul. Sophie's not just a teammate. She's a force of nature. And when she comes flying into a play with that signature "you messed up" smirk, every single person on the court knows it's about to get real. So next time someone thinks about taking a cheap shot at Caitlin, they better remember one thing. She doesn't walk into any game alone. Sophie Cunningham is one quick side eye away from flipping the narrative, the scoreboard, and maybe your whole career trajectory. She's not here for post-game interviews. She's here for the post-game silence when her presence alone shuts the whole thing down. Welcome to the Fever Defense Program. Step to Clark and you get Cunningham. Good luck. By the way, this is what she posted as soon as it happened. This is in the locker room. This is before the game ended. Before the game ended, she comes out in the locker room and posts this. What are we doing? When the Connecticut Sun players decided to test their luck with some shady fouls and sneaky moving screens, Sophie Cunningham didn't hesitate. She went full medieval. No warm-up, no warning, just pure, undiluted vengeance wrapped in a tight ponytail and the kind of stare that makes grown athletes rethink their careers. 1 second, Caitlin Clark's getting targeted. The next, Sophie's materialized out of thin air like a basketball terminator with zero chill. This isn't some over-the-top act. She's not play-acting tough. This is just Sophie in her natural habitat, treating every cheap shot like a personal challenge. If you roll up on Clark with dirty intentions, Cunningham is already halfway through her counterattack, probably drafting your eulogy in her head while locking in on your jersey number. At this point, Sophie's not even playing defense. She's enforcing boundaries. You make eye contact with Caitlin like you're planning something shady. Sophie's already gliding in from the three-point line with purpose. And it's not just the offender who backs down, it's the whole team. Instinctively they retreat. They don't know why. They just know danger has arrived, and it smells faintly of sweat, aggression, and vengeance. Once Sophie zeroes in on you with that try-me face, your life flashes before your eyes. And don't mistake this for chaos. Sophie doesn't lash out recklessly. This is chess, not checkers. She hits you with just enough legality to stay on the court, and just enough force to make you second-guess your entire approach to life. She's not the enforcer the league asked for, but she's definitely the one it needs, especially if Caitlin's taking elbows like she accidentally walked into a biker bar mid-tilt, and the sun definitely felt the full weight of that energy. The second they started circling Caitlin like it was Shark Week, Sophie entered like a caffeine-injected hawk with a personal vendetta. This wasn't a defensive play, this was a declaration. If there had been a flag to throw, Sophie would have been the flag. She was the warning sign, the klaxon, the "you messed up" alarm. One would think someone on the Sun might have said, maybe this isn't the team we start swinging on. But no. This turned into an all-out scuffle, and Sophie happily stepped in as captain, referee, and punishment all in one. And while Clark kept dropping buckets like nothing happened, Sophie stood tall, unshaken, completely unfazed, and silently daring anyone else to try again. She went and got revenge. Sophie Cunningham JC Shelves driving to the basket. Sophie Cunningham takes her down, normal enough take foul. Lindsay Allen gets her by the neck. Then JC Sheldon goes at her and Sophie Cunningham, by the way, Sophie Cunningham, she wanted to. It looked like Sophie Cunningham was about to throw some knees at her. And she had her in an MMA hold, like, Sophie Cunningham could have got this MMA fight ended. She could have got this fight ended quickly. That's the thing. Sophie's not in this for validation. She's not angling for endorsement deals or soft focus interviews. She's there to create disruption with surgical precision. Other teams have finally caught on. Sneeze in Caitlin's direction, and Sophie's already powering up like a Marvel villain with nothing to lose. She doesn't want respect. She demands fear. And she gets it, usually while rejecting your weak layup and leaving you with a psychological scar that'll last through next season. The patterns become painfully clear. You make a move on Clark, and suddenly your body gets reacquainted with gravity in a brand new way. Chirp during a timeout. Sophie's already leaning on the scorer's table like your mom at parent-teacher conferences. This isn't team spirit, it's tactical domination. Commentators are scrambling to label it passion, but let's be real. They're just relieved Sophie hasn't gone full Malice at the Palace on press row for mispronouncing her teammate's name. Almost happened in his game, but first, let's talk about Sophie and JC. Alright, JC showed it. My goodness now, honestly, I felt like Sophie might have wanted a piece of JC after the Caitlin Clark and JC kind of scuffle going on, right? Then this happened. Okay, and now fans are waking up to it too. People aren't just watching for Caitlin's highlight threes. They're tuning in to see when Sophie decides to hand out justice like it's a giveaway night at the arena. 1 second it's a basketball game. The next it's a full-blown spectacle of vengeance and perfectly timed retaliation. Sophie's not just playing. She's serving as the WNBA's human alarm system. You can't argue with her. She doesn't give you time to. She's not here for the debates or the podcasts or the fake apologies. She's here to remind you, emphatically and without blinking, that dirty plays come with consequences. And she'll do it with a grin that says, touch her again and your chiropractor's going to need backup. We see Caitlin Clark on the receiving end of something, and it's not called correctly. In fact, she gets a technical foul after getting poked in the eye and then shoved to the floor, and Marina Mabrey doesn't even get thrown out of the game. It's basically open season on Caitlin Clark, and the special whistle that she supposedly gets goes in the other direction. Flagrantly so. They gotta put it to an end. I mean, she's the most valuable player in the league in the most literal sense. And somehow she gets the opposite of superstar treatment, because make no mistake, this is the Sophie Cunningham era. Caitlin Clark might be the future of the league, but Sophie is the fortified wall around that future. Think you'll make a name for yourself roughing up the next big star? Better hope you're flexible, because Sophie's about to fold you like a lawn chair. She's the bouncer, the bodyguard, the wall of fury that you never saw coming. And thanks to her, the WNBA just became must-see TV. She doesn't throw shade, she brings the whole thunderstorm. So if you're thinking of throwing elbows, you better bring a helmet, a strategy, and a sturdy emotional support system. Because Sophie's watching, waiting, and very ready to remind you, Caitlin Clark is off limits. And if that's a problem for you, you've got about 5 seconds before Sophie makes it your worst decision of the season.